As mainly as a child, when I was a teenager, I used to come, we lived in Whitby, and we used to come across quite regularly to visit my great aunties who lived in Ruby Street, 22 Ruby Street, and owned a shop on the corner of Milton Street and Ruby Street. The fact that it's now the hardware shop. They were my auntie, they were great aunties. They were Auntie Eva and Auntie Madge, and their surname was Featherstone, and it would be the 60s and a bit of the 70s, I suppose, when they had the shop. It was a wool shop before, but I have no idea what happened to it afterwards, really, because they retired, and I guess didn't live that so many years after they retired, really. And so I can remember visiting them. I can remember staying sometimes during the summer for a few days and helping out in the shop. So I can remember the layout of the shop and the way it was set out. And you had, very much like it is now the hardware shop, it was that square at the front, and the counter was set back, and literally it was the best insulated shop in Saltburn, because all the shelves were filled completely up to the ceiling with wool and clothing and all the sort of things that they sold, and they had a big pair of rickety old steps that they used to climb up to the top, and they knew, before computers, they knew where everything was, and they used to sit not in the middle room but right in the back room, and they would knit and make things to sell in the shop, and they would hear the bell go, and then they would scoot through to the shop to serve whoever it was. And I guess, like in lots of shops in those days, people came in for a chat, maybe like ripping yarns is now in a modern shop. But it was just a fascinating shop, really, absolutely full of stuff, really. They decided, in order to go and get goods from the wholesalers, that they would buy a car. And they bought a little Mini when the Minis first came out. Neither of them could drive, and they were, getting on a little bit. And so my dad was teaching the younger one, my Auntie Madge, great Auntie Madge, to drive. They all had this vision of the fact that they had this little Mini, and when you looked at the stuff they had in the shop, all the bulky stuff in the shop, I was thinking, well, you'd not actually be able to get very much stuff from the wholesalers to put in this tiny little Mini to bring back. But I do remember working in the shop, and I remember on one particular occasion a lady came in, and I was in the front of the shop and my aunties were in the back, and this lady looked a little bit timid and couldn't quite decide what to do, and eventually decided that she was going to ask for what she wanted, and what she wanted was a pair of ladies' bloomers. But asking this 15, 16-year-old lad for a pair of bloomers took a little while for her to get it done, really. But I had to have help anyway, because I didn't know where they were. But